Section 1 of the Aeneid of Virgil. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Aeneid of Virgil. Translated by John Dryden. Book 1, Part 1. Arms and the man I sing, who, forced by fate and haughty Juno's unrelenting hate, expell'd and exiled, left the Trojan shore. Long labours both by sea and land he bore, and in the doubtful war, before he won the Latian realm and built the destined town, his banish'd gods restor'd to rights divine, and settled sure succession in his line, from whence the race of Alban fathers come, and the long glories of majestic Rome. O Muse, the causes and the crimes relate. What goddess was provoked, and whence her hate? For what offence the Queen of Heav'n began to persecute so brave, so just a man? Involv'd his anxious life in endless cares, exposed to wants, and hurried into wars. Can heav'nly minds such high resentment show, or exercise their spite in human woe? Against the Tiber's mouth, but far away, an ancient town was seated on the sea, a Tyrian colony, the people made stout for the war, and studious of their trade. Carthage the name, belov'd by Juno more than her own Argos, or the Samian shore. Here stood her chariot; here, if Heav'n were kind, the seat of awful empire she design'd. Yet she had heard an ancient rumour fly, long cited by the people of the sky, that times to come should see the Trojan race her Carthage ruin, and her towers deface. Nor thus confin'd, the yoke of sov'reign sway should on the necks of all the nations lay. She ponder'd this, and fear'd it was in fate, nor could forget the war she waged of late, for conqu'ring Greece against the Trojan state. Besides, long causes working in her mind, and secret seeds of envy lay behind. Deep graven in her heart the doom remain'd of partial Paris, and her form disdain'd. The grace bestow'd on ravish'd Ganymede, Electra's glories, and her injur'd bed. Each was a cause alone, and all combin'd to kindle vengeance in her haughty mind. For this, far distant from the Latian coast, she drove the remnants of the Trojan host; and 7 long years th' unhappy wand'ring train were toss'd by storms, and scatter'd thro' the main. Such time, such toil requir'd the Roman name, such length of labour for so vast a frame. Now scarce the Trojan fleet, with sails and oars, had left behind the fair Sicilian shores, ent'ring with cheerful shouts the wat'ry reign, and plowing frothy furrows in the main, when, labouring still with endless discontent, the Queen of Heav'n did thus her fury vent. "Then am I vanquish'd? Must I yield?" said she, "and must the Trojans reign in Italy? So fate will have it, and Jove adds his force, nor can my pow'r divert their happy course. Could angry Pallas, with revengeful spleen, the Grecian navy burn, and drown the men? She, for the fault of one offending foe, the bolts of Jove himself presum'd to throw. With whirlwinds from beneath she toss'd the ship, and bare expos'd the bosom of the deep. Then, as an eagle gripes the trembling game, the wretch, yet hissing with her father's flame, she strongly seiz'd, and with a burning wound transfix'd, and naked on a rock she bound. But I, who walk in awful state above the majesty of Heav'n, the sister wife of Jove, for length of years my fruitless force employ against the thin remains of ruin'd Troy. What nations now to Juno's pow'r will pray, or off'rings on my slighted altars lay?" Thus rag'd the goddess, and, with fury fraught, the restless regions of the storms she sought, where, in a spacious cave of living stone, The tyrant Aeolus from his airy throne, with pow'r imperial, curbs the struggling winds, And sounding tempests in dark prisons binds. This way and that th' impatient captives tend, And, pressing for release, the mountains rend. High in his hall th' undaunted monarch stands, And shakes his scepter, and their rage commands; Which, did he not, their unresisted sway Would sweep the world before them in their way. Earth, air, and seas thro' empty space would roll, And heav'n would fly before the driving soul. In fear of this, the Father of the Gods Confin'd their fury to those dark abodes, And lock'd 'em safe within, oppress'd with mountain loads; Impos'd a king with arbitrary sway, To loose their fetters, or their force allay; To whom the suppliant queen her pray'rs address'd, And thus the tenor of her suit express'd: "O Aeolus, for to thee, the King of Heav'n, The pow'r of tempests and of winds has given. Thy force alone their fury can restrain, And smooth the waves, or swell the troubled main. A race of wand'ring slaves, abhorr'd by me, With prosperous passage cut the Tuscan sea. To fruitful Italy their course they steer, And for their vanquish'd gods design new temples there. Raise all thy winds, with night involve the skies, Sink or disperse my fatal enemies. Twice sev'n, the charming daughters of the main, Around my person wait, and bear my train. Succeed my wish, and second my design: The fairest Deiopeia shall be thine, And make thee father of a happy line." To this the god: "'Tis yours, O queen, to will The work which duty binds me to fulfil. These airy kingdoms, and this wide command, Are all the presents of your bounteous hand. Yours is my sov'reign's grace; and, as your guest, I sit with gods at their celestial feast. Raise tempests at your pleasure, or subdue; Dispose of empire, which I hold from you." He said, and hurl'd against the mountain side His quivering spear, and all the god applied. The raging winds thrush thro' the hollow wound, And dance aloft in air, and skim along the ground. Then, settling on the sea, the surges sweep, Raise liquid mountains, and disclose the deep. South, east, and west with mix'd confusion roar, And roll the foaming billows to the shore. The cables crack, the sailors' fearful cries ascend, And sable night involves the skies, And heav'n itself is ravish'd from their eyes. Loud peals of thunder from the poles ensue, Then flashing fires the transient light renew. The face of things a frightful image bears, And present death in various forms appears. Struck with unusual fright, the Trojan chief With lifted hands and eyes invokes relief, And "Thrice and four times happy those," he cried, "That under Ilian walls before their parents died. Tydides, bravest of the Grecian train, Why could not I by that strong arm be slain, And lie by noble Hector on the plain? Or great Sarpedon, in those bloody fields, Where Simois rolls the bodies and the shields Of heroes, whose dismember'd hands yet bear The dart aloft, and clench the pointed spear?" Thus, while the pious prince his fate bewails, Fierce Boreas strove against his flying sails, And rent the sheets. The raging billows rise, And mount the tossing vessels to the skies; Nor can the shiv'ring oars sustain the blow. The galley gives her side, and turns her prow, While those astern, descending down the steep, Thro' gaping waves behold the boiling deep. 3 ships were hurried by the southern blast, And on the secret shelves with fury cast. Those hidden rocks the Ausonian sailors knew; They call'd them altars when they rose in view, And show'd their spacious backs above the flood. 3 more fierce Eurus, in his angry mood, Dash'd on the shallows of the moving sand, And in mid ocean left them moor'd aland. Orontes' bark, that bore the Lycian crew, A horrid sight, even in the hero's view, From stem to stern by waves was overborne. The trembling pilot, from his rudder torn, Was headlong hurl'd; thrice round the ship was toss'd, Then bulg'd at once, and in the deep was lost. and here and there above the waves were seen arms, pictures, precious goods, and floating men. The stoutest vessel to the storm gave way, and suck'd thro' loosen'd planks the rushing sea. Ilioneus was her chief, Alethes old, Achates faithful, Abas young and bold, endur'd not less their ships with gaping seams admit the deluge of the briny streams. Meantime imperial Neptune heard the sound of raging billows breaking on the ground. Displeas'd, and fearing for his wat'ry reign, he rear'd his awful head above the main, serene in majesty, then roll'd his eyes around the space of earth, and seas, and skies. He saw the Trojan fleet dispers'd, distress'd, by stormy winds and wintry heav'n oppress'd. Full well the god his sister's envy knew, and what her aims and what her arts pursue. He summon'd Eurus and the western blast, and first an angry glance on both he cast. Then thus rebuked: "Audacious winds, from whence this bold attempt, this rebel insolence? Is it for you to ravage seas and land, Unauthoriz'd by my supreme command? To raise such mountains on the troubled main, Whom but first 'tis fit the billows to restrain, And then you shall be taught obedience to my reign. Hence to your lord my royal mandate bear. The realms of ocean and the fields of air Are mine, not his. By fatal lot to me The liquid empire fell, and trident of the sea. His pow'r to hollow caverns is confin'd; There let him reign, the jailer of the wind; With hoarse commands his breathing subjects call, And boast and bluster in his empty hall." He spoke, and while he spoke he smooth'd the sea, Dispell'd the darkness, and restor'd the day. Cymothoe, Triton, and the sea-green train Of beauteous nymphs, the daughters of the main, clear from the rocks the vessels with their hands. The god himself with ready trident stands, And opes the deep, and spreads the moving sands, Then heaves them off the shoals. Where'er he guides His finny coursers, and in triumph rides, The waves unruffle, and the sea subsides. As, when in tumults rise the ignoble crowd, Mad are their motions, and their tongues are loud, And stones, and brands, and rattling volleys fly, And all the rustic arms that fury can supply. If then some grave and pious man appear, They hush their noise, and lend a list'ning ear. He soothes with sober words their angry mood, And quenches their innate desire of blood. So, when the father of the flood appears, And o'er the seas his sov'reign trident rears, Their fury falls; he skims the liquid plains, High on his chariot, and with loosen'd reins Majestic moves along, and awful peace maintains. The weary Trojans ply their shatter'd oars To nearest land, and make the Libyan shores. Within a long recess there lies a bay; An island shades it from the rolling sea, And forms a port secure for ships to ride, Broke by the jutting land on either side. In double streams the briny waters glide. Betwixt two rows of rocks a sylvan scene Appears above, and groves for ever green. A grot is form'd beneath, with mossy seats To rest the Nereids, and exclude the heats. Down thro' the crannies of the living walls The crystal streams descend in murmuring falls. No hawsers need to bind the vessels here, Nor bearded anchors, for no storms they fear. 7 ships within this happy harbour meet The thin remainders of the scatter'd fleet. The Trojans, worn with toils, and spent with woes, Leap on the welcome land, and seek their wish'd repose. First good Achates, with repeated strokes Of clashing flints, their hidden fire provokes. Short flame succeeds; a bed of wither'd leaves The dying sparkles in their fall receives. Caught into life, in fiery fumes they rise, And, fed with stronger food, invade the skies. The Trojans, dropping wet, or stand around The cheerful blaze, or lie along the ground. Some dry their corn, infected with the brine, Then grind with marbles, and prepare to dine. Aeneas climbs the mountain's airy brow, And takes a prospect of the seas below. If Capys thence, or Antheus, he could spy, Or see the streamers of Caicus fly. No vessels were in view; but, on the plain, 3 beamy stags command a lordly train Of branching heads: the more ignoble throng Attend their stately steps, and slowly graze along. He stood; and, while secure they fed below, He took the quiver and the trusty bow Achates used to bear. The leaders first he laid along, and then the vulgar pierc'd; Nor ceas'd his arrows till the shady plain 7 mighty bodies with their blood distain. For the 7 ships he made an equal share, And to the port return'd triumphant from the war. The jars of gen'rous wine, Acestes' gift, When his Trinacrian shores the navy left, He set abroach, and for the feast prepar'd In equal portions with the venison shar'd. Thus, while he dealt it round, the pious chief With cheerful words allay'd the common grief. "Endure and conquer: Jove will soon dispose To future good our past and present woes. With me the rocks of Scylla you have tried, Th' inhuman Cyclops and his den defied. What greater ills hereafter can you bear? Resume your courage, and dismiss your care. An hour will come with pleasure to relate Your sorrows past, as benefits of fate. Thro' various hazards and events we move To Latium, and the realms foredoom'd by Jove; Call'd to the seat, the promise of the skies, Where Trojan kingdoms once again may rise. Endure the hardships of your present state; Live, and reserve yourselves for better fate." These words he spoke, but spoke not from his heart. His outward smiles conceal'd his inward smart. The jolly crew, unmindful of the past, Their quarry share, their plenteous dinner haste. Some strip the skin, some portion out the spoil; The limbs, yet trembling, in the caldrons boil; Some on the fire the reeking entrails broil. Stretch'd on the grassy turf, at ease they dine, Restore their strength with meat, and cheer their souls with wine. Their hunger thus appeas'd, their care attends The doubtful fortune of their absent friends. Alternate hopes and fears their minds possess, Whether to deem 'em dead, or in distress. Above the rest, Aeneas mourns the fate Of brave Orontes, and th' uncertain state Of Gyas, Lycus, and of Amycus. The day, but not their sorrows, ended thus. When, from aloft, almighty Jove surveys Earth, air, and shores, and navigable seas, At length on Libyan realms he fix'd his eyes; Whom, pond'ring thus on human miseries, When Venus saw, she, with a lowly look, Not free from tears, her heav'nly sire bespoke: "O king of gods and men, whose awful hand Disperses thunder on the seas and land, Disposing all with absolute command, How could my pious son thy pow'r incense? Or what, alas, is vanish'd Troy's offence? Our hope of Italy not only lost, On various seas by various tempests toss'd, But shut from ev'ry shore, and barr'd from ev'ry coast. You promis'd once a progeny divine Of Romans, rising from the Trojan line, In after times should hold the world in awe, And to the land and ocean give the law. How is your doom revers'd, which eas'd my care When Troy was ruin'd in that cruel war? Then fates to fates I could oppose; but now, When fortune still pursues her former blow, What can I hope? What worse can still succeed? What end of labours has your will decreed? Antenor, from the midst of Grecian hosts, Could pass secure, and pierce th' Illyrian coasts, Where, rolling down the steep, Timavus raves, And thro' 9 channels disembogues his waves. At length he founded Padua's happy seat, And gave his Trojans a secure retreat; There fix'd their arms, and there renew'd their name, And there in quiet rules, and crown'd with fame. But we, descended from your sacred line, Entitled to your heav'n and rights divine, Are banish'd earth, and, for the wrath of one, Remov'd from Latium and the promis'd throne. Are these our scepters? These our due rewards? And is it thus that Jove his plighted faith regards? To whom the father of th' immortal race, Smiling with that serene indulgent face, With which he drives the clouds, and clears the skies, First gave a holy kiss, then thus replies: "Daughter, dismiss thy fears. To thy desire the fates of thine are fix'd, and stand entire. Thou shalt behold thy wish'd Lavinian walls, And ripe for heav'n, when fate Aeneas calls. Then shalt thou bear him up, sublime to me: No councils have revers'd my firm decree. And lest new fears disturb thy happy state, know I have search'd the mystic rolls of fate. Thy son, nor is th' appointed season far, In Italy shall wage successful war, Shall tame fierce nations in the bloody field, And sov'reign laws impose, and cities build; Till, after every foe subdued, the sun Thrice thro' the signs his annual race shall run. This is his time prefix'd. Ascanius then, now call'd Iulus, shall begin his reign. He 30 rolling years the crown shall wear, Then from Lavinium shall the seat transfer, And with hard labour Alba Longa build. The throne with his succession shall be fill'd 300 circuits more. Then shall be seen Ilia the fair, a priestess and a queen, Who, full of Mars, in time with kindly throes, Shall at a birth 2 goodly boys disclose. The royal babes a tawny wolf shall train. Then Romulus his grandsire's throne shall gain. Of martial tow'rs the founder shall become. The people Romans call, the city Rome. To them no bounds of empire I assign, Nor term of years to their immortal line. Even haughty Juno, who with endless broils Earth, seas, and heav'n, and Jove himself turmoils, At length aton'd, her friendly pow'r shall join To cherish and advance the Trojan line. The subject world shall Rome's dominion own, And, prostrate, shall adore the nation of the gown. An age is ripening in revolving fate, When Troy shall overturn the Grecian state, And sweet revenge her conqu'ring sons shall call, To crush the people that conspir'd her fall. Then Caesar from the Julian stock shall rise, Whose empire ocean, and whose fame the skies Alone shall bound; whom, fraught with eastern spoils, Our heav'n, the just reward of human toils, Securely shall repay with rites divine; And incense shall ascend before his sacred shrine. Then dire debate and impious war shall cease, And the stern age be soften'd into peace. Then banish'd faith shall once again return, And vestal fires in hallow'd temples burn. And Remus with Quirinus shall sustain The righteous laws, and fraud and force restrain. Janus himself before his fane shall wait, And keep the dreadful issues of his gate. With bolts and iron bars within remains Imprison'd Fury, bound in brazen chains. High on a trophy rais'd of useless arms He sits, and threats the world with vain alarms. He said, and sent Cyllenius with command To free the ports, and ope the Punic land To Trojan guests, lest, ignorant of fate, The queen might force them from her town and state. Down from the steep of heav'n Cyllenius flies, And cleaves with all his wings the yielding skies. Soon on the Libyan shore descends the god, Performs his message, and displays his rod. The surly murmurs of the people cease, And, as the fates requir'd, they give the peace. The queen herself suspends the rigid laws, The Trojans pities, and protects their cause. Meantime, in shades of night Aeneas lies. Care seiz'd his soul, and sleep forsook his eyes. But, when the sun restor'd the cheerful day, He rose, the coast and country to survey, Anxious and eager to discover more. It look'd a wild uncultivated shore; But, whether humankind or beasts alone Possess'd the new-found region, was unknown. Beneath a ledge of rocks his fleet he hides; Tall trees surround the mountain's shady sides; The bending brow above a safe retreat provides. Arm'd with 2 pointed darts he leaves his friends, And true Achates on his steps attends. Lo, in the deep recesses of the wood, Before his eyes his goddess mother stood, A huntress in her habit and her mien. her dress a maid, her air confess'd a queen. Bare were her knees, and knots her garments bind; loose was her hair, and wanton'd in the wind. Her hand sustain'd a bow, her quiver hung behind. She seem'd a virgin of the Spartan blood; with such array Harpalyce bestrode her Thracian courser, and outstripp'd the rapid flood. "Ho, strangers! have you lately seen," she said, "one of my sisters, like myself array'd, who cross'd the lawn, or in the forest stray'd? A painted quiver at her back she bore, varied with spots; a lynx's hide she wore, and at full cry pursued the tusky boar." Thus Venus; thus her son replied again: "None of your sisters have we heard or seen, O virgin, or what other name you bear Above that style, O more than mortal fair. Your voice and mien celestial birth betray, If, as you seem, the sister of the day, Or one at least of chaste Diana's train. Let not an humble suppliant sue in vain; But tell a stranger, long in tempests toss'd, What earth we tread, and who commands the coast. Then on your name shall wretched mortals call, And offer'd victims at your altars fall." "I dare not," she replied, "assume the name Of goddess, or celestial honours claim; For Tyrian virgins bows and quivers bear, And purple buskins o'er their ankles wear. Know, gentle youth, in Libyan lands you are, A people rude in peace, and rough in war. The rising city, which from far you see, Is Carthage, and a Tyrian colony. Phoenician Dido rules the growing state, Who fled from Tyre to shun her brother's hate. Great were her wrongs, her story full of fate, Which I will sum in short. Sichaeus, known for wealth, and brother to the Punic throne, Possess'd fair Dido's bed, and either heart At once was wounded with an equal dart. Her father gave her, yet a spotless maid. Pygmalion then the Tyrian scepter sway'd, One who condemn'd divine and human laws. Then strife ensued, and cursed gold the cause. The monarch, blinded with desire of wealth, With steel invades his brother's life by stealth; Before the sacred altar made him bleed, And long from her conceal'd the cruel deed. Some tale, some new pretence he daily coin'd, To soothe his sister, and delude her mind. At length, in dead of night, the ghost appears Of her unhappy lord. The spectre stares, And with erected eyes his bloody bosom bares. The cruel altars and his fate he tells, And the dire secret of his house reveals. Then warns the widow with her household gods To seek a refuge in remote abodes. Last, to support her in so long a way, He shows her where his hidden treasure lay. Admonish'd thus, and seiz'd with mortal fright, The queen provides companions of her flight. They meet, and all combine to leave the state, Who hate the tyrant, or who fear his hate. They seize a fleet, which ready rigg'd they find, Nor is Pygmalion's treasure left behind. The vessels, heavy laden, put to sea With prosp'rous winds; a woman leads the way. I know not, if by stress of weather driven, Or was their fatal course dispos'd by Heav'n. At last they landed, where from far your eyes May view the turrets of new Carthage rise. There bought a space of ground, which Byrsa call'd, From the bull's hide they first enclos'd and wall'd. But whence are you? What country claims your birth? What seek you, strangers, on our Libyan earth?" To whom, with sorrow streaming from his eyes, And deeply sighing, thus her son replies: "Could you with patience hear, or I relate, O nymph, the tedious annals of our fate! Thro' such a train of woes if I should run, The day would sooner than the tale be done. From ancient Troy, by force expell'd, we came, If you by chance have heard the Trojan name. On various seas, by various tempests toss'd, At length we landed on your Libyan coast. The good Aeneas am I call'd; a name, While fortune favour'd, not unknown to fame. My household gods, companions of my woes, With pious care I rescued from our foes. To fruitful Italy my course was bent, And from the King of Heav'n is my descent. With twice 10 sail I cross'd the Phrygian sea; Fate and my mother goddess led my way; Scarce 7 the thin remainders of my fleet, From storms preserv'd, within your harbour meet. Myself distress'd, an exile and unknown, Debarr'd from Europe, and from Asia thrown, In Libyan deserts wander thus alone. Section 2.